The Galactic Military Academy was a marvel of interstellar cooperation, a sprawling complex that floated amidst the stars, drawing cadets from every corner of the galaxy. Its towering spires glowed faintly against the backdrop of the endless void, symbolizing unity and progress. Here, the brightest minds and strongest warriors of countless species gathered, all driven by a singular goal: to prove their worth and serve the galaxy. Among the sea of cadets was Alex Carter, one of only a handful of humans enrolled in the prestigious institution. Alex was unremarkable in appearance, a lean figure with sharp eyes and an air of quiet determination. Despite their impressive academic performance and tactical acumen, humans were often seen as fragile and insignificant compared to the galaxy's more formidable species. To the likes of Zarnak, an elite warrior from the Zorkith species, Alex was little more than a joke. Zarnak was the epitome of Zorkith superiority, standing nearly 7 feet tall with dense, scaled skin and a natural musculature that seemed sculpted for battle. He was a veteran of countless sparring matches, his victories celebrated in every corner of the academy. His confidence was as unshakable as his reputation, and he made a sport out of preying on those he deemed beneath him. It was during a routine training session that their paths crossed. The cadets were practicing simulated combat maneuvers when Zarnak's booming voice echoed across the arena. "You call that a strike, human?" he sneered, his sharp teeth glinting under the artificial lights. He had been observing Alex's performance, waiting for the perfect moment to pounce. "Perhaps your kind should stick to diplomacy. Leave real combat to those of us equipped for it." The other cadets paused, some chuckling nervously, others exchanging uncertain glances. Alex froze, but quickly resumed their stance, ignoring the taunts. This only seemed to amuse Zarnak further. "Don't ignore me, little one," he growled, stepping closer. "I'm offering you a chance to prove your worth. If you think you have any—" Alex straightened, meeting Zarnak's gaze with quiet defiance. "I don't need to prove anything to you." The room fell silent. For a moment, there was only the hum of the training drones circling overhead. Zarnak's smile widened, a predatory glint in his eyes. "Is that so? Then let's settle it. A duel. 1-on-1. Unless, of course, you're afraid." The challenge hung in the air like a weight, pressing down on Alex. Refusing would confirm every insult Zarnak had hurled at humanity. Accepting, however, meant stepping into a fight with someone far stronger and more experienced. Alex took a deep breath, feeling the eyes of the room on them. "Fine," Alex said, voice steady. "Let's do it." The cadets erupted in murmurs, some impressed by Alex's courage, others shaking their heads at what they saw as foolishness. Zarnak clapped his hands, clearly pleased. "Tomorrow at the combat arena. Don't disappoint me, human." As Zarnak walked away, Alex remained rooted, their resolve hardening. They weren't just fighting for themselves. This was about proving humanity's worth in a galaxy that doubted them. Failure wasn't an option. The combat arena was a spectacle in itself, an enormous dome with adaptive terrain designed to challenge every combatant's skills. The energy shields lining the perimeter glimmered faintly, ready to contain the intensity of the duel. Cadets from every species filled the spectator seats, their chatter a low rumble of excitement and anticipation. This was more than just a fight. It was a clash of ideals, a test of whether humanity could stand against the galaxy's elite. Zarnak stood in the center of the arena, his towering form commanding attention. He radiated confidence, his sharp claws tapping impatiently against the hilt of his energy blade. "You should have stayed in your quarters, human," he said with a smirk as Alex approached, their smaller figure a stark contrast to his imposing bulk. Alex didn't respond, instead taking their position with a calm, focused expression. They adjusted their grip on the standard-issue energy blade, the weight of the weapon familiar, yet daunting. The rules were simple. No lethal strikes, but incapacitation or disarmament would determine the winner. For Alex, This wasn't just a fight for victory. It was a chance to dismantle the arrogant assumptions Zarnak represented. The duel began with the sharp clang of a bell, and Zarnak wasted no time. He lunged forward, his blade arcing through the air in a powerful, deliberate strike meant to end the fight swiftly. Alex sidestepped, barely avoiding the blow, and countered with a quick jab aimed at Zarnak's exposed flank. The strike glanced off Zarnak's armor-like scales, earning a derisive laugh from the alien. "You're quick, I'll give you that," Zarnak said, advancing again. "But speed won't save you." Alex didn't reply, focusing instead on maintaining distance. They had no intention of meeting Zarnak's brute force head-on. Instead, they began circling, their movements calculated, forcing Zarnak to turn and reposition constantly. The spectators watched intently, some murmuring about Alex's apparent hesitation. But as the duel progressed, a pattern began to emerge. Zarnak's strikes, though powerful, were wide and overly reliant on his superior strength. Each missed attack cost him momentum, and Alex was using the arena itself to their advantage, weaving around obstacles and forcing Zarnak into awkward positions. Frustrated, Zarnak growled and charged again, his blade swinging in a deadly arc. Alex ducked, narrowly avoiding the blow, and darted toward a holographic barrier that had just materialized. Using the barrier as a springboard, Alex leaped over Zarnak's head, delivering a precise strike to the alien's shoulder. The hit wasn't enough to injure, but it destabilized Zarnak, forcing him to stumble. The crowd erupted in a mix of cheers and gasps. For the first time, it seemed the human cadet wasn't entirely outmatched. Zarnak's expression darkened as he steadied himself, his pride clearly wounded. "You think you're clever, don't you?" he snarled, gripping his blade tighter. "Let's see how long you can keep running." Alex adjusted their stance, their breathing steady despite the intensity of the fight. "I'm not running," they said quietly. "I'm just waiting for you to catch up." The remark was simple, but it struck a nerve. Zarnak roared, charging with renewed aggression, his strikes faster and more reckless than before. Alex braced themselves. The duel wasn't over, but the balance of power was beginning to shift. Zarnak's attacks became relentless, each strike coming faster and heavier than the last. His frustration was palpable, the initial arrogance in his movements replaced with growing impatience. He was used to overwhelming his opponents, used to seeing fear in their eyes. But Alex didn't falter. They kept their composure, dodging and parrying with precision, each movement calculated to conserve energy and exploit openings. For a moment, the arena was a blur of flashing blades and shifting terrain. The crowd's anticipation hung thick in the air as Zarnak closed the distance again, bringing his blade down in a crushing overhead swing. Alex raised their shield just in time, the impact reverberating through their entire body. Zarnak pushed harder, trying to force Alex to their knees, but they shifted their weight and deflected the blow, sending his blade into the ground with a sharp hiss. It was the opening Alex had been waiting for. They moved quickly, delivering a strike aimed at the back of Zarnak's knee, a weak point they'd noted earlier. The energy blade connected, and Zarnak stumbled, his balance faltering. The crowd gasped as Alex didn't retreat this time. Instead, they pressed the advantage, keeping Zarnak on the defensive. "You're slower than I expected," Alex said, their tone even, though their breath came quicker now. Zarnak snarled, swinging wildly to regain control, but his attacks lacked their previous precision. His movements were growing sloppier with each miss, his brute force working against him in the confined space. Alex dodged another strike and leapt to higher ground, using a raised platform generated by the arena's dynamic environment. From his lower position, Zarnak roared, the sound echoing across the dome. "You can't run forever, human. Face me." Alex didn't respond. Instead, they activated a small energy emitter on their wrist, a standard issue gadget often overlooked in combat. A burst of light shot toward Zarnak, disorienting him momentarily. It was a small trick, but it bought Alex just enough time to reposition and strike again. This time, their blade cut through the control panel of Zarnak's shield generator, sending sparks flying. His energy shield flickered and died, leaving him exposed. The crowd erupted, their cheers and shouts blending into a chaotic roar. Zarnak's expression shifted from anger to something more unsettling. Disbelief. "You're toying with me," he growled, his voice low and dangerous. "No," Alex replied, stepping back and raising their blade in a defensive stance. "I'm outthinking you." The admission was simple, but struck deeper than any physical blow. Zarnak charged again, but this time Alex sidestepped and used the arena's terrain against him. A quick feint lured Zarnak into overextending, his momentum carrying him into an electrified barrier. The shock coursed through him, forcing him to drop his blade. Alex didn't hesitate. With a swift, precise motion, they disarmed Zarnak completely, sending his weapon skittering across the arena floor. The match was over. The crowd erupted into chaos, some cheering, others stunned into silence. Zarnak dropped to one knee, his breaths ragged. Alex stood before him, blade at the ready but pointed downward, a silent declaration of victory. They didn't gloat, didn't taunt. They simply stepped back, lowering their weapon, leaving the message unspoken but undeniable. Strength wasn't the only measure of power. The arena was silent for a moment, the reality of what had just happened sinking in. Zarnak, the undefeated champion, knelt on the ground, his pride and confidence shattered. Around him, murmurs spread through the crowd, disbelief mingling with admiration. For the first time, the human cadet had not only stood their ground, but emerged victorious. Alex stepped back, lowering their weapon fully and letting it deactivate. Their breathing was controlled, though the strain of the fight was evident in the subtle tension of their stance. They didn't look at the crowd, nor did they revel in the moment. Their gaze remained fixed on Zarnak, waiting for his reaction. Zarnak slowly rose to his feet, his movements heavy. His scaled hands brushed against his side where Alex's blade had struck earlier, the faint scorch marks still visible. He turned to face Alex, his yellow eyes narrowing, not with anger, but with something closer to reluctant respect. "You fought well," Zarnak said, his voice quieter now, though it carried across the arena. "Better than I expected. Perhaps better than I gave you credit for." It wasn't an apology, but it was close enough. Alex nodded slightly, accepting the words without triumph or mockery. "You're strong," they said, simply, their tone neutral. "But strength alone doesn't win battles." The words hung in the air, a quiet lesson etched into the aftermath of the duel. Zarnak stared at Alex for a long moment, then turned and walked away, his broad shoulders still exuding pride, but tempered now by humility. The crowd erupted once more, the spell of silence broken. Human cadets cheered loudly, their voices cutting through the mix of stunned whispers and reluctant applause from the alien spectators. Alex remained where they stood, their weapon clipped back onto their belt, their face calm despite the storm of emotions swirling inside them. As the arena began to clear, instructors and senior cadets exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of intrigue and newfound respect. Alex's name was on everyone's lips. For years, humanity had been seen as weak, unremarkable among the Galactic community. But this duel, this singular moment, had shifted that perception. Back in the cadet quarters, Alex sat quietly at their desk, replaying the events of the fight in their mind. It hadn't been easy, and the risk had been immense. But they had done what they set out to do, not just win, but prove that humanity's greatest strength lay in adaptability, resilience, and strategy. The door slid open, and a small group of human cadets entered, their expressions a mix of excitement and gratitude. One of them, a younger recruit, stepped forward hesitantly. "That was incredible," they said. "You showed them what we're capable of." Alex smiled faintly, leaning back in their chair. "We still have a lot to prove," they replied. But this was a start. In the following days, the duel became a legend within the academy. Alien cadets who once dismissed humans as weak began to approach Alex with questions, seeking insight into their tactics. Respect, grudging at first, began to grow. Even Zarnak, though he remained distant, no longer looked at Alex, or any human, with the same disdain. Alex knew the journey ahead would still be filled with challenges. Prejudices didn't disappear overnight, and the weight of representing humanity in a galaxy of giants was a heavy burden. But they also knew that in those few moments in the arena, they had accomplished something profound. Strength came in many forms, and Alex had shown the galaxy that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't its physicality, it was its mind. The fight might have ended, but the message it sent would resonate far beyond the Academy's walls.